Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
It is one of those paradoxes of Indian military history that campaigns in which we did poorly, as in 1962 against the Chinese, or where we got stalled, as in 1965 against Pakistan, these campaigns are better documented than the clear victory in 1971. The 1971 campaign was codenamed Operation Cactus Lily. I am not sure if the obvious logic would explain it: tough offensive in the east and a delicate holding posture in the western sector. But writing is insufficient on both the sectors for 1971. Possibly, it is because the pain of military disappointment inspires more creative introspection, as the rich literature on the 1962 shows, or the officers brought up in the old British system also inherited its literary tradition. We don't know. Our biggest lack on 1971 is a Sam Manekshaw memoir, and that film, I'm afraid, does not do any justice to him or to the history of the war. So he never wrote a memoir, which is a disappointment. Lieutenant General Jagjit Singh Arora, who led the Bangladesh campaign as GOC-INC Eastern Command, chose not to start writing until Operation Blue Star and the later massacres of Sikhs in 1984 in Delhi and elsewhere. These brought him into public debate. He wrote some articles and also a chapter in a contributory volume published by Rowley Books in 1984, The Punjab Story, in which I had a contribution too. I also contributed a chapter there. Air Chief Marshal P.C. Lal wrote a brilliantly honest account of the air campaign in 1971. Much later, P.V.S. Jagan Mohan and Samir Chopra, world-class air combat historians, closed the loop with a beautifully documented and non-partisan work on the eastern sector, not on the entire air war, only air war in the eastern sector. But on the land campaign, the senior-most military leader to weigh in was Lieutenant General JFR Jacob, who served in 1971 in the rank of Major General as Chief of Staff Eastern Command or Deputy to GOC Lieutenant General Arora. As usually happens in such cases, these works, Surrender at Dhaka and An Odyssey in War and Peace, that's his book, these works suffer from an imperfection. They represent one man's view of the story with nothing of equal or greater weight to challenge it. Jacobs, or Jakes as he insisted his friends, even I, 35 years younger than him, call him, he has been widely read and admired by friends, but it was also panned by many others, including a respected columnist on military affairs, Ajay Shukla. Even as a Jake fan, I have to concede that his account makes Manekshaw seem like an absentee landlord and Arora as soft and passive, if not a wimp. But if none of them challenged him, he wasn't going to be denied his last word. They had the option of writing their own accounts as well, which they chose not to exercise. General Jacob, or Jake, was a clean writer, had a great memory, and was widely respected and trusted. As I got to know him better through the years, there was rarely a conversation that lasted less than a couple of hours, whether in his tiny flat in New Delhi's Somvihar, Punjab's Raj Bhavan, where he was governor, or our home, which he visited often. He regaled us with stories from Arakan in World War II, Arakan in Myanmar, to Tejgaon, as Dhaka cantonment was called. He did pour scorn on all his seniors, for sure. But he also complained that the government of India never gave him any honor. No bloody honor. No bloody chakra. No bloody Padma, he would often say. All that bloody, in fact, in my written version, there are 3 O's or 4 O's for that bloody, just for emphasis. That's how he spoke, because he was so upset about this. Maybe that regret spoke out in his writings. That's why it was such a special moment for him when his book got published. That's why it was also such a good conversation when I recorded a walk the talk with him in New Delhi's Somvihar. It was probably his last full-length interview. But he had only gratitude and affection for the army. I told you, he often poured scorn on his seniors, but he had only gratitude and affection for the army. He had no family in India. Jake never married. And it was a handful of army soldiers who were seconded to look after him. We met first time in 1991 after I visited Israel under Scud attacks then, while covering the 1991 Gulf War. He was a great supporter of India-Israel relations. We met more often once he joined the Bharatiya Janata Party on the late Manohar Lal Sondhi's advice and became a favorite of L.K. Advani. In one of those conversations, I once asked him why he had joined the BJP and not any other party. Hey boy, he said, hey boy, they were the only ones who asked me. We were in splits. He was such an innocent, honest guy. He loved Israel too, but he fully belonged to India. He supported Israel on most of its policies, but never said one rude thing about Muslims, expressing great affection for Indian Muslims. Israelis hailed him in their national museum as one of the greatest Jewish warriors in history. Jake let that sit lightly on his shoulders and often reminded his friends that nobody in India was conscious of his Jewish identity until Radio Pakistan in its war propaganda insinuated that India had picked a Jewish general specially to negotiate the surrender to humiliate the Islamic world. The most remarkable feature of Jake's life is how he resisted migrating to the promised land, Israel, as most of India's native Jewish population did, leaving India with just over 6,000 Jews, or maybe at this point even fewer than that. They are India's most microscopic minority now. His promised land was India, and he was its finest, most loved permanent envoy to Israel. As I traveled to Chandigarh often, we met frequently when he was in the Raj Bhavan there, garrulous as ever and proactive as titular governors usually aren't. But he was too sincere and lovable a figure for even the Badal government to resent. He had us friends in splits with hilarious stories about Cloud Senior and Cloud Junior, that is Prakash Singh Badal, Cloud Senior, and son Sukhbir Badal, Cloud Junior as he called them, if you haven't guessed already. It was at one of those meetings that he fretted over the absence of a war memorial in India. I said to him, find us a spot and we will raise the resources to build a fine war memorial here in Chandigarh. He was game. Okay boy, he said, we will build one more Shandar Yadgar. The rest of the story is brief. The Indian Express appealed to its readers and raised the funds. Jake gave us a great spot in the city's Green Lung Leisure Valley. And the PWD, the Chandigarh PWD, built India's finest war memorial until the one in Delhi came up, India's finest war memorial until then, there in Chandigarh, in the heart of Chandigarh. It was also Jake's great insight that he said, don't let the PWD design it, or the Richard fellows will ruin it, make it like one of their Sakari buildings, he said. We conspired. We thought, so how do we get an architect? Will we call bids? What will then happen? It was a government system. We conspired to announce a competition for architects pro bono, and it was won by two young women students at the local School of Architecture, at the Chandigarh School of Architecture. Do check out their brilliant creation on your next visit to Chandigarh. It was inaugurated by then President APJ Abdul Kalam. In my last meeting with General Jacob in 2012, he presented me a copy of his second book. I gratefully handed him my pen to write something on the book, which he did, and then gave an admiring look at the pen. Hey boy, you use a Mont Blanc fountain pen, he said. I used to have one. My brother borrowed it, but the silly fellow lost it. I said, no worries, Jake. I will bring you one for my next visit overseas. I didn't travel overseas for some time, and sure enough, got a reminder from him on email in his characteristic large-sized capital letters. I did finally buy him one, a Mont Blanc fountain pen of the kind I use, at the tiny Harrods outlet at Heathrow duty free on my way back once, and sent it to his home, shopping bag and all. He was thrilled as a baby would be with a new rattle. Wrote me an excited mail, again in all capitals, all large capitals, and then called, boy, you shop at Harrods. I did that also when I was younger. The truth in my book, however, is that Jake never aged, never grew up, and never faded either. That's why he remains among the greatest Indians I am blessed to have known as a journalist.